Half a year later, the other shoe has finally dropped on Ctrip. A fine and confiscation totaling 5.179 billion yuan. A lot or a little? That 5.179 billion breaks down into two parts. 1.59 billion in confiscated illegal gains, and a 3.521 billion yuan penalty set at 7.5% of its 46.95 billion yuan in China sales for 2020. On top of that, regulators ordered Ctrip to return 122 million yuan in merchant deposits it had forcibly withheld. Honestly, this was a real spanking. For comparison, Alibaba's antitrust fine was 4% of the prior year's revenue. Meituan's was 3%. Ctrip's just jumped straight to 7.5%. Not only is that a record rate, Ctrip also has to cough out the full 1.658 billion in illegal gains on top of it. That's never happened before. This isn't your standard warning shot fine anymore, it's a clear escalation in tone. Tolerance for traffic gatekeeper platforms is falling systematically. So why? The answer might come down to 4 words: distribution reform. This is Chen's China Prism. Today we're digging deep into Ctrip. First, let's answer a question: why is tolerance for monopolies dropping? Because monopolistic firms have become the most glaring, stubborn blockage in income distribution reform. Take Ctrip. Regulators zeroed in on 2 things this time. First, the pick one platform rule. Simply put, if you want traffic from my platform, you can't run a shop on any other. Second, the platform-wide lowest price rule. Want traffic? Fine, but your price anywhere else can't undercut what you charge here. The first rule locks down a merchant's exit. The second locks down their pricing power. Combine the two, and merchants can neither leave nor set their own prices. All they can do is pay up. According to people in the hotel and travel industry, OTA platforms' combined commission is pushing close to 30%. By comparison, many independent hotels are left with a net margin under 2%. This lopsided structure doesn't just hurt merchants, it damages the entire distribution cycle. For every 100 yuan a customer spends on a room, 20 to 30 goes straight to the platform. What's left has to cover the hotel's rent, payroll, linens, and still leave some profit. The result: hotels can't turn a profit, service quality slips, workers get squeezed, and customers end up complaining about rundown rooms and bad service. The only one thriving in this whole cycle is the OTA platform itself. The numbers say it all. In 2024, Ctrip's roughly 40,000 employees generated over 17 billion yuan in net profit. Meanwhile, 6 hotel companies are listed on China's A shares, 3 more in Hong Kong, and 1, Atour, in the US. In 2024, those 10 companies' combined net profit was just 5.931 billion yuan. All 10 hotel companies put together earned only a third of what Ctrip made alone. It doesn't stop there. In 2025, Ctrip top 5 earners took home a combined 436.6 million yuan. That's an average of over 80 million yuan each, nearly 90 million. Meanwhile, total benefit spending across all 40,000 plus employees came to 18.477 billion yuan. Even after stripping out stock incentives and social security, average pre-tax pay still tops 300,000 yuan a year. Now compare that. What's the average annual wage in urban, private sector hospitality and catering? The answer: 55,042 yuan. That's under 5,000 yuan a month on average. Front desk staff and cleaners making just 3,000 to 4,000 yuan a month is completely normal. In other words, the gains from consumption recovery are largely piling up in the middlemen. None of it is reaching the frontline workers who could actually turn around and spend more. So can Ctrip's executives drive domestic demand? Obviously not. So why break up the monopoly? To return profits the middleman skimmed off back to the people actually producing goods and services. You might wonder, why didn't we crack down before? Because these platforms weren't born as dragons. Back then, booking meant a travel agency or a phone call. Prices were opaque and scams went unpunished. Getting a taxi meant flagging one down. Refusals and detours were the norm. If you were in the Shirley process versa, offline business back then was chaotic, disorganized, and opaque, a genuinely inefficient dragon. So back then, platforms played the role of the dragon-slaying hero. They brought countless merchants online, letting people compare prices and order with a click. They solved the information gap. They built rating systems and after-sales guarantees. Service finally had real standards. and subsidies lowered the barrier to spending. They grew the whole industry's pie. In that phase, their profits came from boost efficiency, from creating real growth. So we encouraged it and tolerated the cash-burning expansion. But once the cash wars ended, rivals were knocked out, and the market consolidated, everything changed. The platform's goal was no longer growing the pie. It became carving up what already existed. They stopped fighting monopolies, because now they were the monopoly. Worse still, they became the biggest obstacle to innovation in the industry. Even a new platform with lower fees and a better experience couldn't land the good merchants, because those merchants were already locked in. The Dragon Slayer eventually put on the Dragon's own scales and became the new dragon. But just because Ctrip stumbles, does daylight break for the whole industry? The answer might not be that optimistic. First, that 5.179 billion is a one-time penalty. You can't expect that payout every year. What this crackdown really releases long-term is the excess commission the monopoly was extracting across an industry worth hundreds of billions and tens of millions of workers. That relief is, frankly, pretty limited. Second, profit doesn't automatically flow through to wage. That profit lands in the hotel's hands first. First in line to be paid: rent, supplies, depreciation, the fixed costs. In a competitive market, merchants might throw it all back into fighting for customers. It might never become real profit. And even if the hotel earns more, that money won't automatically reach frontline staff. Hospitality has low barriers, and high turnover workers have almost no bargaining power. Pay raises have never automatically followed a rising tide. Bottom line, antitrust just wrests the pie back from the platform to the real economy's side. But whether it flows from the boss's hands to the workers, and from there into spending, at least 3 hurdles remain. The first is offline rent. Just as platforms take their cut online, landlords take theirs offline. Everyone fixates on platform commissions but overlooks that rent is actually the first mountain merchants have to climb. In hotels, rent in prime commercial districts can eat up 20 to 35% of revenue, roughly on par with platform commission. Even if platforms waived all fees tomorrow, the landlord would be happiest. Rent keeps rising regardless, and profits get eaten up just the same. There's still no money left for frontline raises. Second is the pecking order of distribution itself. Hospitality, catering, and logistics are mostly low-barrier jobs. Workers there have very little bargaining power. Even if industry profits rise, whether that money actually gets shared with frontline workers remains a problem to solve. There's also the fixed cost of daily life. Even if wages rise, while education, healthcare, elder care, and housing costs don't move, and mortgages, car loans, and childcare costs don't come down, consumption will keep getting held back. By now, you should see it: income distribution reform is one giant systemic project. Platform antitrust is just the opening move on the surface. Actually getting the pie into ordinary people's hands takes a whole combination of coordinated moves. That includes tearing down platform barriers, lowering real economy costs, changing distribution rules, and easing people's daily burdens. Miss any one piece, and you only get a partial fix. But whatever the case, cracking down beats doing nothing, and reforming beats standing still. What do you think? And Ctrip won't be the last. Who do you think is next? Tell us in the comments. This is Chen's China Prism. We track China's realities and explore what's behind the surface. That's it for this episode. See you next time.